Hi everyone, welcome to Prevention Education, the podcast that teaches you everything about prevention. Thanks for listening, and let's get started.
Hi everyone, welcome back to another Prevention Education episode. As always, I am your host, Kylie, and I'm a Prevention Project Specialist at Preferred Family Healthcare in the Prevention Department. And so we have been on a series about how to talk to kids about substance use, and we've done pre-K to second grade, third to fifth grade, and sixth to eighth grade. And we're going to take a second before we jump to 9th to 12th grade, and we're just going to talk about the specific substances for the next 3 episodes. And so we're going to kick it off with vaping, and this whole podcast will be about talking to kids about the dangers of vaping and how you can set goals while talking with them, how to start the conversation about vaping, some tips, and then I'll give you our contact information at the end so that if you have any questions whatsoever, we can answer anything and potentially chat with you about how to talk to kids about vaping. So I just want to start this episode off with a vaping fact. So in 2023, e-cigarettes were the most commonly used tobacco product among middle school and high school kids in the United States. If you kind of zoom out and listen to that again, so I'm just going to repeat it one more time. In 2023, e-cigarettes were the most commonly used tobacco product among middle and high school students in the United States. That's a pretty, crazy statistic. The next statistic I have for you is 2.1 million, or 7.7% of students currently used e-cigarettes. Again, this is in 2023. So statistics have changed a little bit. Data just hasn't fully come out for 2024 yet. So that 2.1 million, or 7.7% of students that currently use tobacco, that includes 550,000, or 4.6%, of middle school students, and then 1.56 million, or 10%, of high school students. So I just share this fact just to get you guys thinking about how many students are actually vaping. And we only have the statistics on students that tell the truth that they are vaping. I'm sure there's a lot more. Again, this is a personal fact, but I believe that there is a lot more students out there that are vaping who just don't report it and don't trust the surveys that are sent out, and so they'd rather just say no and not risk anything coming out of saying yes. So again, I'm going to say 2.1 million students currently use e-cigarettes. If I just said 7.7%, it's like, 7.7, then it's under 10%. But in reality, 2.1 million is a lot of students. And if we could just change one of their minds, that's potentially saving a life in the future that could have gotten caught up in vaping, which could have in turn led to higher substance use, which could have in turn led to a really big downhill life trajectory. So, knowing this fact, I just really want to encourage you guys to talk to youth about vaping and help them to know the effects of it so that they can make a healthy decision for themselves. The goal of these conversations isn't to just pump kids with information so that you brainwash them. It is to give them valuable information so that they can make the healthy choice for themselves, so that they can feel like they are doing a service to themselves, choosing the right path, and creating an environment for themselves to thrive in. So, knowing all of that, we're going to initially start off with how to start the conversation. I know that a lot of adults feel like this is a very tricky topic, me included. I have a really hard time bringing this up with youth because, you want to be their friend, you want to be a trustworthy person to them, and sometimes if you bring up a tricky subject, it might feel like their barrier goes up. But it's so important to start this conversation so that you can continue to build trust up with them. So, how to start the conversation? Number 1, you can say, what are your friends and family like? And if you are a friend or family, you can be like, hey, what are your other friends like? Like if we're in another friend group of yours, What do they say? What do they do? What's some fun things that you guys do together? Maybe I can join. Or if you want to know more about their family, be like, hey, we've been friends for a while. I was just curious, what's your family dynamic like? And share yours maybe first to get them to open up. But that is a really great way to just see how their relationships are, and what their family dynamics are. The second way that you can start the conversation is just by saying, school can be tough at times. So, with that toughness, how do you cope with the stress? If they show you some really positive coping mechanisms, that is amazing. This is also an opportunity for them to show you some maladaptive or negative coping mechanisms. So if they say, after a really stressful test, I go home and I doubt that this is as serious as they will be, but if they say, I go home and I start vaping, then it's like, oh, okay, yeah, let's dive deeper into that. Let's figure out why you turned to that. And maybe let's come up with 3 other things that you can do instead of that. But if they say, like, I go home and I kick the soccer ball, then really encourage that. Be like, that's really great, actually. Can I maybe join you sometime in that? What are some other things do you do? Do you like art? Do you sing? Do you do any other sports? Then you can just dive deeper into getting to know them more. And that can just be a really great way to build trust. The third way to start the conversation is by asking, have you heard of people vaping? So the first 2 conversation starters are kind of easy to ask and to bring up, but this one's very direct. Have you heard of people vaping? I know that some adults might not want to start a conversation like this, but it gets right into the topic at hand. It gets them to know right away what you want to talk about, and it can give you a direct answer pretty quickly. So if they say yes, maybe just ask them more questions about vaping, what they do know, so that you're just not reiterating a bunch of facts for them. But if they say no, then it's a wonderful opportunity to be like, you know what? That's wonderful. Potentially you haven't heard of it, but I would love to tell you more about it so that you can choose for yourself when the topic does come up. And then the 4th conversation starter could be, what would you say if your friends asked you to vape with them? Again, this is one that might make you shake in your boots and you don't love it, but having that direct question can give you a direct answer. So if they say, I don't see the harm in it, I would say sure. It's like, okay, thank you for being so honest with me. Let's, again, dive deeper into that as to why you think that it's 100% okay to do. But if they say, yeah, I just don't think that I would say yes. Again, another great situation to dive deeper into this conversation and say, I think that's wonderful. Why would you say no? Why would you deny them? And do you think that you would potentially stand up and say, I know this and this and this about vaping, and I think maybe you should choose to be vape free too? It just really opens up the conversation and helps you to get to know them and their friend group better, and can also make them someone that stands out in their friend group that encourages the others to be vape free too. So those are just 4 simple conversation starters. And again, the first 2 are pretty quick to start any conversation, but the last 2 are very specific to the vaping conversation. But I really encourage you to use the last 2 in any way, shape, or form, just because when they know it's about vaping, then they will hopefully tune in, listen to you, and know that it's a very important conversation. So I just really encourage you guys to start off that way. And you never know where the conversation may go. It might end in one sentence, and that's okay. It might continue for 30 minutes, which would be awesome. But just getting them to think about it and building that trust up between you and them is really important. So talking about building that trust, we're going to move on to some goals so that you can build that trust together. So the first goal while talking about this is talk with them, not at them. Don't make it a lecture. I think I say this in every podcast that's about having a conversation with the youth. but just don't make it a lecture. You want to make sure that you are having a conversation with them and that they haven't said any word in the whole time that you're talking with them. A second goal is have an open mind while listening to them. Sometimes I'm guilty of this. When I talk to youth, I can kind of, tune out and say, you know what? I don't really know what they're saying. And they're so young, I just don't know if I believe it. But it's so important to actually listen to them, and maybe they say, you didn't have a vaping problem. You didn't have vaping around when you were younger, and so why should you be lecturing me about this? Why should you be having a conversation about me? And it's so easy to just close that off, but if you step back and think about it, there were so many different issues when a lot of people were younger, and just staying calm and helping them to realize, sure, I might not have had to go through this, but there were a lot of other barriers. But now, a lot of people have to go through it, and let's chat about it together. But just make sure you're having an open mind and that you're listening to them as well. A third goal is allow space for questions to be asked. And don't be afraid of questions. If there's a question that you don't know the answer to, that's fantastic, actually. You guys should Google that together or go on any, search platform that you use and just figure out the answer to it together. That can be a wonderful bonding moment. Just make sure throughout the conversation that they know you can ask any question. If a fact that I throw out and you're just not sure about it, be like, where'd you get that fact? What does that mean? Why does that matter? The whys are completely okay to ask. And again, sometimes you won't know. Don't say just because. Just say, let's dive deeper in it together and we'll figure it out. And I will help you. We'll learn together. We will help each other through learning this about vaping. The fourth goal would be develop a code word or phrase for your teen to use if they find themselves in an uncomfortable situation. I really love this goal, and it's definitely a goal that I will enact in the future. Sometimes it can be uncomfy when they're put in a situation that they're just not very sure about, especially when it comes to substances. So you want to make sure that they have a safe way of getting out of that. So if they're at a party with friends and they call you, but they can't get in a room by themselves, if they say, hey, Mom, so I was thinking about, the vacation that we're going on to Costa Rica next year. Maybe Costa Rica's the code word. And so then I'm on my way to come get you. Thank you for calling me. And none of their friends know that that is the situation. Or maybe it's a different word. They call you and they just say, instead of hi, Mom, they say, what's up? And it's like, oh, okay. Now I know to come and get you. So just develop a code word or phrase so that they can reach out to you or text you with it. And it's secret between you and them, and it doesn't put them at risk for being uncool or whatever they think would be happening, and it gets them out of a very uncomfortable situation. The last goal is come to a common ground with clear expectations set. If you get to this point, it might take a few conversations to get to this point, which is 100% okay. You want to make sure that, especially with teens, you come to a common ground and don't just demand them to do something. So maybe it is, hey, I think that it's totally okay for you to still go to parties, but if there is any kind of vaping going on, I would really appreciate if you call me and I can come pick you up, or you can just leave. And if you don't want to leave, please don't engage with it. So you can say that what you fully want from that conversation from them is for them to not use vaping. But if it's a situation where they trust themselves and you build trust with them, say if you trust yourself to not engage, to not inhale, to not do any of that, then I trust that you are putting yourself in a good situation. So maybe that's it. Maybe the line's drawn at when someone asks them to use it. And then it's like, okay, give me a call and I'll come get you. maybe the line's drawn way before that. Even if you see a vape in the situation, give me a call. If you hear that it's gonna be happening, give me a call. It's up to you to set where the common ground and where that boundary and expectation is. But it's really important to talk through it with them so that they know exactly where that boundary is. Okay, so that's all of our goals. Now we're going to move on to tips, and I have 3 tips for you guys. The first tip is avoid yes/no questions. Ask in-depth questions that warrant responses. So, kind of bringing it back to the conversation starters. One of the questions, I will admit, one of the questions is a yes or no, but you can add more to it. So the question was, have you heard of people vaping? They can easily say yes. Then you can say, what have you heard? So just continue that conversation. Instead of have as the beginning of the question, make it what or where or who, any of the other W's pretty much, so that you can just get that conversation rolling. The second tip I have for you is encourage healthy habits and hobbies. So if they say one of their coping strategies, how they relieve stress, is by playing soccer, you'd be like, that is so great. What position do you play? That's a really way to get some stress out and just run it off. Or, work on your skills while you're also just trying not to think about certain things. What days of the week do you play? Can I come join you? I really love that you do that. So just really encourage them in the healthy habits that they have, so that it doesn't seem like you're just tearing down their negative habits and hobbies. The third and final tip that I have for you is build relationships built on trust. Even as adults, we won't continue a friendship if we don't trust the other person. We won't continue a relationship if we trust the other person. That's a dead end for a lot of relationships. So I just really, really, really encourage you to build those relationships up. It might not happen in one day. It might not happen in a year. It might take a really long time to build those relationships on trust, but it's so important to make sure at the end of the day that it is built on trust. Because if you are saying that vaping isn't healthy and they don't trust you, they're not going to listen. But if they fully trust you, they're going to listen, and they're going to take that into consideration the next time that they're put in a situation where vaping is there. So build relationships on trust with youth, especially when talking about substances. Okay, guys. We have made it through the facts, the conversation starters, the goals, and the tips. So I'm going to leave you with our contact information. I am Kylie Limburger, and again, I am the Prevention Project Specialist, and I would love to answer any questions that you have about this topic. I've been working in this field for 4 years, and I just think it's so important to empower kids and to just help them know the facts so that they can encourage each other to be substance-free and vape-free. So my information is Kylie.Limburger, LINBERGER @pfh.org. If you want to email our department, it is moprevention@pfh.org. And if you want to go to our website, it's pfh.org/prevention. And on our website, if you go to the staff tab, you will find all of our information, and so you can email any one of us with any questions that you have. But that is all that I have for you guys today. Thank you guys so much for listening to this episode and for caring about the youth in your lives. I know that as someone who had a lot of adults that were there and supported me, it meant the world to me to know that people were proud and always there. And so if you are that caring adult in their life, thank you for everything that you do, because it does not go unseen. But thank you guys so much for tuning in. I hope you guys can share this with someone that might benefit from it. And I hope you guys have a wonderful day. And I can't wait to talk with you guys next time. Bye, everyone.
Thank you guys so much for tuning into our podcast. Remember to follow us on social media at PFH Prevention. You can find us on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, and Spotify, and more podcasting platforms. And make sure to email us at moprevention@pfh.org with any questions, and feel free to call us at 660-627-7404. Thanks for joining us and have a great day.